So I'm just talking, there we go. All right, so it's a little bit better. All right, so what we noticed is that we were lacking on the amount of actual content that we were producing. So we have one for sellers, because sellers, it's kind of like up in the air. You know, there's a ton of information out there for buyers. It's not that big of a deal to be a buyer in the real estate market. Obviously, yes, I always say, of course, use a real estate agent whenever you can. However, if you're not giving actual content and value, there's no point in actually working with that person. So this is us giving the content. I have a couple of things that I wrote down on what sellers should look like, you know, or look for. I don't care what they look like. What they should look for. And the reason being is, you know, we go after for sale by owners. So we provide them with value, we give them a guide, we tell them if it's underpriced, overpriced, we give them a CMA, we also go live sometimes for you guys. And it really boils down to a couple of things because they're getting bombarded. And the thing is, when an industry, say like real estate, has so many people involved, it's like oil or water, it's a commodity. You know, you see that person and you say, listen, they're just like everyone else. You know, they have to prove themselves before they actually get, you know, not only business, but they also get referrals. You know, that's the biggest thing, is or a reputation. So sellers look at real estate agents in general and they say, okay, what are you providing? You know, there's a ton of brokerages out there. You obviously have Element, Corcoran, Brown Howard Stevens, Compass, Halstead. You have all these firms, Sotheby's, us, and you have, what is the difference? You know, what is the main difference? You know, tell me your differentiating, say, marketing, or differentiating what differs you from someone else, or what's the difference between your brokerage and someone else. So this is really going to be tailored. Yesterday was tailored to the agents, giving value to the marketplace. However, this is going to be tailored to, obviously, sellers out there. And if you're a for sale by owner or not, ironically enough, looking at the statistics, is that the amount of for sale by owners has actually decreased since the 1980s. So when it was harder to actually get your home on the market and out and awareness, the amount of people that are actually doing it on their own has actually went from, I think it was 8%, or I'm sorry, it was like 15% at the height, and now it's only about 8%. And this is obviously nationally, so this isn't just locally in New York City. I don't know what the for sale by owner amount, it would probably be roughly around that, you know, might actually be less. And in a more expensive marketplace, you'd expect it to be a little bit more, especially with Street Easy and whatnot. So let's just hop right into it. So there's a couple things that would really differentiate the agent. Obviously, the agent has the ability to differentiate their brokerage from someone else. You know, their brokerage would be, you know, that we have, this is what I said at Halstead. I said that we had storefront, people walk in and whatnot. What I noticed is that people don't really walk in. It's only really tourists that walk in. You know, that was the weird and kind of discerning part, is that you're open, you're on the storefront, you're on the corner, we were on Broadway and 13th, and not many people walked in and they're like, I want to buy a property. If they did, they really weren't that qualified. So they have all these other, you know, differentiating topics. So the first thing is that you're solution oriented. Okay, if you're an owner and you're looking for the agent, I wrote down 4 things. Obviously, you can, you know, this, and the reason I say this is because this is a relationship. Okay, this is a relationship. You're going to be getting into a relationship with an agent through the most expensive, likely the most expensive transaction you'll ever do in your entire life. Like, you need to be educated on what to look out for, what to look for, what not to look for, things like that. So I highly recommend a couple of things. Number one is solution-oriented means that when an issue arrives or when an objection arrives, so a buyer comes in and they say, well, this looks out at a water tower. And you could say, well, we incorporated it into the price, or a buyer comes in and they say, why is there an assessment, or why is there pending litigation against the building? You know, there's a litany of objections. You know, this place is too small, or the bathroom is in the bedroom. You know, you need to have someone that live, as we are right now, live in person, be able to break down that objection and give them a real qualified answer. That's solution-oriented. You know, someone that's not solution-oriented, you say, Charles, obviously, you know, solution-oriented, that's super easy. But someone that's not solution-oriented would see that water tower outside the window or the bathroom in the bedroom and just say, yeah, you're right. You know, that's not a bad way to reply because you're acknowledging obviously the objection. But then along the way, you're also going to have, we're in a deal right now where we had to run a couple things by the board. Instead of saying no to the offer, we said, okay, let's run this by the board. Let's see if we know anyone on the board or anyone, historically, when this occurs, what does the board do? Do they actually say yes or no to the candidate, to the applicant? So for me, I look at it and I say, what is, this is how you get out of it is, what are we doing right now? No, what's the situation right now? Look at it how it is, and then how do we overcome it? It's super easy, but a lot of people don't do that. They're like a sponge. That's the easiest way to put it. They're like a sponge. They receive an objection or they receive a problem, and then they just push it back onto someone else. They push it onto the attorney, the management company, the co-op, the other broker, the client, whatever, and that's what happens. So the second thing I wrote down was enthusiasm. And that really dials into salesmanship. But enthusiasm is energy because you don't know when it's kind of like I don't want to compare ourselves to a fireman, obviously, but you don't know when you're going to get that call. You don't know, hey, listen, we're around the corner. My buyer really wants to see this today or tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. If you show up and you're schlubbed out and you're like, here's the apartment, and you're exhausted, that shows everything about the home. That shows how excited you are about the home, how excited you are to sell the home, how excited someone is to buy that place. You have to look at it and say, I'll give you this example, is we have an owner right now that is looking for so they have a beautiful place that's on the market right now. And the thing is that there's also a decent amount of inventory, not comparables, but there's a decent amount of inventory that people are also visiting. Okay, so you have to differentiate your home, or in other words, if you're a seller, you have to differentiate, your broker has to differentiate your home than the 7 other places that they're going to be seeing that day. And that could be the enthusiasm, that could be the salesmanship, that could be the previous thing, which is solution oriented. You have to be able to have your agent differentiate the home themselves, the amenities, the area, the transportation, all these things. And that literally comes down to the energy. That comes down to the enthusiasm. All right. So moving on is salesmanship. All right. So it's kind of a dirty word. Nobody wants to talk about being in sales. Nobody wants to talk about salesmanship. But that's really what it is. You're selling a experience. You're selling a lifestyle. You're selling where someone is going to be spending a lot of time or they're going to be investing a lot of money into. If it's an investment or it's a pied-à-terre or it's a primary, it doesn't matter. This is an expensive place that they need to feel comfortable putting their investment into that. That is salesmanship. There are so many books about it. Obviously, you have a bunch of people. The main one that's coming to mind is Grant Cardone. He's kind of like a shtick kind of guy. But to be honest, you look at a guy like Gary Vaynerchuk or Elon Musk, he has to believe in his product. He's not the best, easiest character on stage to convey that, like, say, maybe Steve Jobs. However, if you look at, the amount of people that are actually not good at sales because they don't know how to handle an objection, they don't have enthusiasm, they don't have energy, they feel like the product itself will sell itself, and this is actually a funny story. So obviously with for sale by owners, you go and you preview and they talk about their home and everything else. And we had this one guy who gut renovated his entire place, Upper West Side, beautiful, unbelievable. It was just stunning. So I was like, show me around, pretend like I'm a guest in your place. So he goes, here's the bathroom. I'm like, okay, it's a really nice bathroom. And it was. I wasn't just blowing smoke. And then he goes, here's the kitchen. And I was like, dude, what? This is how you've been showing the apartment? This is your apartment. You know exactly what went into this. You know the renovations, the tough work that went into, say, the flooring or the contracting or the lighting, the electrical, all these things. I'm like, sell me on your place. This is your place. So not only is the salesmanship, this is all wrapped up into one, it's essentially just providing what that buyer is looking for. And what are the questions that you have to ask the agent? The first question is, you get that feeling inside. That feeling inside is, I kind of jive with this person or they don't jive. That's super easy. But to get the salesmanship, you can obviously just give them a test run. You're at the pitch and say, how would you show this home? How would you show this kitchen? How would you talk about this view or this area or this building or these amenities? What would you do? And then you get to see them live. You get to see them, see what their past sales are good, but what are their days on the market? Do they have any property tour videos? Are they producing any content? Do they have any podcasts out there that you could hear their voice and before you even meet with them? There's so many ways to actually get a handle on someone. And honestly, social media is a great way. Social media is an incredible way because you understand not only through their photos and the colors they use and the captions they use, how often do they post, what do they talk about, are they active, things like that. Moving on is a consummate professional, obviously. So you can have a professional, but the professional might be too buttoned up. Someone that just moves around, and then you have the extreme, which is a professional that's like, oh, hey, how's it going? Here's my used car. And honestly, that's how a lot of the people see the industry, which is you have to break away from that. So as an owner, how do you see the consummate professional? How do they carry themselves? How do they talk? Are they too comfortable? Do they assume that they're going to get it? Which is confidence, which is good, but do they assume without actually putting any work in? I walk in and I assume the listing, I assume that I'm going to get it. Well, there was this one top agent I was talking to, I'll never forget it. He was like five or 6 years ago. And the guy was on stage and he did a few $100 million in sales. And he started going into the story of every time he was pitching a listing, he would go in and he would have the exact same Rolodex, the exact same pitch deck, the exact same amount of time between each room. It didn't matter if it was 500,000 or 5 million. This guy walked in pretending like he didn't get the listing, even if it was a past client. And I can give you this, we had a referral. This was probably the best example, especially as an owner. You should always just see who's sold in the building. So we sold the place on the Upper West Side. Beautiful place. And the neighbor was actually looking to sell. So the two owners talked and they said Charles was really good, obviously. Charles was really good. He got us the asking price. I didn't give him a lot of time, blah, blah, blah. The owner, so I went over and I sort of assumed the sale, which was not good. I assumed that I was going to get it. And I went in, did everything that was necessary, really jived with the owners. We were both on the same page on timing, on pricing, it was on cleaning up the place. It was an amazing presentation. It was just there. I left and they said, you got it. So I go back for a second time and they say, okay, before you obviously take the photos, I want you to see if you would change anything before you take the photos and everything else. So I went back. They told me between that time of 1 week, because I said I'm going to send out the paperwork, and they said, oh, okay, we'll get around to it, and they were busy and everything else. They never signed it and everything else. And I went back. I said, oh, did you sign the paperwork? In other words, the listing agreement. And they talked with someone else. And it was such a shock. And this was recent. And it was so shocking at the time, like literally as I'm talking to them, I was like, oh, who? They mentioned the name, I recognize the name, they're a top team here in New York City. But it's one of those things that I would say if the person is assuming the sale, they may not put all their effort into it. Okay, so as an agent, I assumed the sale, not that I wasn't going to put all the effort forward. But as an owner, you have to say, is this person really going to give me the attention? Is this person too busy? And then when we have open houses, who's going to be there? Are you going to be there? Is it going to be a shower? Is it going to be someone that you paid off? Is it, are they licensed? Are they able to talk about, not only selling, buying, but the area and everything else? Because if you're not licensed, you really can't talk about deals and things like that. So you have to really go deep into these questions. So let me just obviously not only wrap it up, but give you the 4 again. So the solution-oriented is something that you can test in by giving them a problem at the end. So a problem is something that, oh, okay, and you can even just make it up on the spot. At the end, Barbara Corcoran actually mentioned this a couple of times, that when she was hiring, at the end of the interview, she would go to the candidate and be like, you're not right for the job. And if she said that they sat there and they accepted it, Barbara Corcoran would just not hire them. And it was interesting. She said if they wanted to walk across or jump across the table and strangle me and say, no, I'm the candidate of choice, they were hired. So you have to bring up these scenarios. Solution-oriented. Easy way to say, hey, listen, I'm talking to a bunch of people, and I would love to go with you potentially. And of course, you would have to give us a live tour, which is you can see their salesmanship, you can see their energy, you can see their enthusiasm, and then give them a problem, which is I actually want to sell later in the year, or this is the price I want to sell at, something that even you didn't even want to sell it at. You have to give them an opportunity to show themselves, because once you sign on that dotted line, like I said in the beginning, you're in a relationship. That relationship could be fun and exciting. It could be honeymoon years, or it could be brutal, and then you just say, this is typical, So I know there's easy ways to get swooned by pitch decks and beautiful listings and everything else, but who's to say that that person not only is going to show it, but that person is going to be able to sell it at the price that you want? That's ultimately what we need to do. So solution-oriented, enthusiasm, salesmanship, and a consummate professional. So if you guys have any questions, obviously leave it in the comments below. We're going to be going live pretty much, as much as we can, 4 to 5 days a week. One of the tomorrow we're not going to be going live, but one of the hot topics we're going to be talking about is what is the value that a brokerage is going to be providing now? Because brokerages right now they're getting disrupted. There's a lot of teams within brokerages, and then that team is able to say, I'm going to make the calls, I'm going to close the deal. But different portions of that team are going to be specialized and do what they need to do to get the deal done. So as a seller, make sure that you don't just get swooned on the pitch. Make sure that you talk to not only a bunch of agents, but you also say, what questions do you have for me? And if they don't have any questions, how excited are they about the listing? How excited are they to actually sell that listing? So if you guys have any questions, leave in the comments below. Going to be signing off right now. And of course, if there's any topics that you want us to cover, just obviously leave it in the comments, subscribe to the video. Again, we go live every single week, and it's obviously going to be a different topic. So seller strategy. Yesterday was BPIU, which is for real estate agents. We have the real estate show, and we also have You Ask, We Answer, 60 seconds and under, really quick, rapid fire, fun, engaging kind of deal. So have an awesome Tuesday. It looks like it might be raining out there. But anyway, cheers, and I'll talk to you guys soon.